Sales is not something that you do if you can't figure out how to do anything else. Like, not everybody can do it.
How do you keep yourself motivated, happy, and not feel saturated with, okay, I have achieved this, now there's nothing beyond this?
I was offered a salary that at the time seemed like more money than I could have imagined. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. You go, you get your degree, you get a job. I had now a job at a
Hello from Bangalore, India. I'm your host, Pamela, and you're tuned into Transition Story. Join us as we listen into inspiring tales from our guests, glean valuable learnings, and take action to apply them to our daily lives. Meet Bill, a Michigan State University graduate with a degree in mathematics and computer science. Initially, Bill started writing COBOL programs for a Fortune 50 manufacturer, but quickly realized that a long term corporate career in this segment wasn't his path. Striking out on his own, Bill provided technical support and office automation services to small businesses, navigating the challenges of entrepreneurship at such a young age. After 2 intense years, he discovered the exciting world of sales engineering. Bill's journey took him to top software companies like Information Builders, Clarify, HP, Aptio, where he gained valuable experience and forged connections with industry leaders. Join us as Bill shares his remarkable career transition and the lessons he learned along the way. He also authored the book Tech Sales Wasabi, which we will inquire in a bit on what it is about. So, Bill, welcome to the show. How does it feel?
Thanks, Pamela. It's interesting. I have to admit, sometimes, like as you've laid out my career, and I think about it, I'm like, wow, I've actually come a long way in the last 30 years, and it doesn't necessarily feel like that. But when you kind of turn around and look back, I'm like, I've covered a lot of ground. So it was nice. That was nice to hear that. Thanks.
Excellent, excellent. So, I am extremely honored to have you here. So, let's start with your journey. Tell us a little bit about how you got into technical sales, that transition from a manufacturing organization into software sales.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So, I get a degree at Michigan State, and as part of what Michigan State does for its students, they do placement services, and lots of companies at the time would come to Michigan State and talk to computer science and mathematics degree grads. And I talked to several companies and had the opportunity to work in Detroit, which is where I was born and grew up and all that. So that was cool. And I was offered a salary that at the time seemed like more money than I could have imagined. And I'm like, oh, this is, and looking back now, it really wasn't that much money. But it was like, okay, this is life. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. You go, you get your degree, you get a job. I had now a job at a huge company, fairly stable, had a great reputation. I'm like, okay, I put my 30 years in, and then I retire, and that's life. And a few years into the job, I realized a couple of things. One, like, I really liked technology. I liked playing with it. I liked IT technology, computers, fascinating to me, right? And at that time in late 80s and early 90s, like, there was a lot of change happening. I remember my dad bringing home the first IBM PC. And my dad was a CIO, and he had, the IBM rep brings him here's this new thing, and he brings it home. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. And like, so this was where technology was going. And so I knew I liked technology. But the second thing that I realized working for this company was like, hey, if you didn't build cars, you weren't really that important in the company. Like, your career opportunities were limited. Rightly so. Like, I get it. So I didn't feel like I loved cars. I still love cars today, but I didn't feel like I was kind of hardwired into building cars. And so I felt like my career path was limited, and I wanted to do a lot more. And so then I completely rotated from working for this huge company with this, quote unquote, steady job, to going out on my own and focusing on technology and bringing technology to, small, medium-sized businesses in the Detroit area. And I knew nothing about business. And I quickly found myself like in over my head, floating money to buy hardware for companies, and, trying to convince them to use stuff and all that. And I didn't know anything about sales or any of that stuff. And it was a very tough paycheck to paycheck type couple of years. And I had kept in contact with somebody I'd met at Ford and became really good friends with. And he was doing this thing called sales engineer. And I'm like, all right, look, man, you got to tell me what this thing is, because I initially was very put off by the notion of it being sales related and having anything to do with sales, which was like, that was what evil, greedy people did. That is not what, good contributing citizens did in the world. And when he described the job to me, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Like, you get to visit different people, talk about technology, understand their problems, help apply what your stuff to what they need to do. I'm like, this sounds amazing. And so I used the same recruiter that he did. I got my first SE job, and I absolutely loved it. Like, I finally felt like I was now at something that I could really get into, because it was feeding my technology itch, and I could see a direct relationship between what I did and the company, right? The company would, get together at a company meeting and they talk about, well, here was revenue for the quarter. And I could look at that revenue number and say, like, oh, I worked on these deals and these deals contributed that much. Like, that was very satisfying to me. And I love doing it. And in that time, I developed an appreciation for the fact that sales is not something that you do if you can't figure out how to do anything else. Like, not everybody can do it. It's a discipline. It's a profession. There's something to it, and you need to develop skills and practice and learn it just like you would any other profession. So I came to appreciate selling, especially complex selling to multiple stakeholders and technology and all that. And that was really good. And then the next kind of pivotal moment was working at Mercury Interactive, and the SE manager that hired me decided he didn't want to manage anymore. And so there was an open spot. I didn't really think much of it, because my perception of SE managers was that, they scheduled SEs into demos and they took complaints from sales managers, and it wasn't it wasn't very satisfying. You weren't in front of customers. You weren't doing anything fun. But at the end of that year, I sent the head of the SE organization an email and just said, hey, a couple of things that I've learned along the way that I think would be helpful to improve the organization overall. Just wanted to share these things with you. Thanks for having me here. I love being here and all that kind of stuff. And he said, why didn't you apply for the manager role? And I said, well, because I don't want to be like an admin and a scheduler and all that. And he's like, yeah, that's why that person left the role, because that's all they were doing. Like, I want the role to be so much more than that. And I think, the things that you've mentioned as helping improve the organization, like, I think it would be helpful to have somebody that thought about things that way in that role. So I was like, yep, all right, I will do it. And I was fortunate enough, when I was promoted into the manager role, the person who ran the SE organization promoted a person into the director role that I reported to. And this was somebody, in fact, I'll name drop, it was Mike Fay. And Mike understood and believed in people management as a discipline and had an appreciation for it. And he, Mercury Interactive didn't have a new manager enablement program. So I'm stepping into a management role thinking like, well, I just need to do what I was doing before as an SE and teach other people how to do it, or, make sure they're doing it the right way and all that. And management, I came to learn, was so much more than that. And I was fortunate enough to have Mike as a mentor and a guide in doing that, because I feel like I learned a ton about management, and it actually became more satisfying to me to be a leader and the people manager in the organization than just being an individual contributor, SE. And then from there, the opportunity to work for a mega company like HP for a few years. And to me, that was like my MBA. Like, I felt like I got like schooled on running business and managing people, and at scale, and in a huge organization like that, and lots of resources available to you and all those kinds of things. And then to go from there to go to Aptio, where I was employee 73 and there was no SE organization. It was like, so, I've had the huge company and then the small, fast moving company and all that. So it's really, to me, been a very fun ride. And I feel very lucky and privileged to have had the opportunities and experiences that I've had to date. And to go from, this very ignorant, naive person about business with a computer science degree to where I am now, I never would have imagined it, when I graduated back in '89.
Yeah. If Mike is listening to us when we publish this, I would make it a point to send this recording to Mike so that he
Yeah.
is able to, see how you still admire him so much. It's very hard to find such people in life, and
Yeah,
sometimes they, stay with you even if they're not close.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah. And I must congratulate you for such a phenomenal journey, and the way you narrated it. The passion is very clear that you have enjoyed this entire path, entire transition process, and you are there where you really are happy and you have a sense of fulfillment. So, a follow up to this, now that you're doing what you love to do, what next? How do you keep yourself motivated happy, and not feel saturated with, okay, I have achieved this. Now there is nothing beyond this. What keeps you going?
It's, Pamela, it's a great question. And I think that there are lots of people who, if they have a bit of ambition or, that they're always kind of thinking like, okay, what do I do next? And they're always looking for the next thing. And, I think with experience has come a tempering of that. And I realize, look, I was managing an SE team and I left that and kind of was on my own doing a little bit of consulting and things like that with Chris White. And I came to realize like, I miss being part of an organization and leading an organization and all of those things. So like when I think about what's next here at Mesmo, like I feel like this could be kind of like the capstone to a really amazing career. And I'm enjoying it with the perspective of 2020 hindsight of having looked back at kind of my experience as an SE leader in other places and like being able to now apply some of that stuff. But most importantly, to just relax and enjoy the role and the job and really just kind of take it in and be like, stop worrying about what the next thing is going to be or what do we do next or all of that. It's like I feel like maybe for the first time in my career, I'm really able to focus on being part of Mesmo and growing it. And, how do we build this company out and how do we make it a great place to work? And how do I bring in, awesome talent and all of those kinds of things? And it's really satisfying. And I'm not really thinking about like, what's next or what's my path? What's my promotion? I'm like, man, I'm really, really taking the opportunity to enjoy being here and doing the job and working with the people that I'm working with and all that.
So what I hear is, you live in the present. You're not worried about the future. You don't regret what happened in the past. You're simply enjoying your present. And that's a great advice to our listeners. People who want to pursue their passion, they need to be able to be very present in their current moment and enjoy it, take in the full advantage of that moment and live it to the fullest. So,
100%.
what's with Wasabi and tech sales, your book? So, for our listeners, Bill has written a book and, it has this title of Tech Sales Wasabi. What is with that? What did transpire in your mind? What were you thinking when you wrote the
It's
book?
that was not the name of the book. The original name of the book was something very boring and conservative. And I was kind of happy with it. But I had the opportunity to speak at Consensus's Demo Fest a couple of years ago. It was 2021, maybe in London. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember exactly what year, but I had an opportunity to speak, and I focused on a part of the book where I talk about developing people in this hierarchy of sales engineer needs and how you create the right environment in an organization for SEs to thrive and to develop and all of that. And as I was thinking about the presentation, I'm like, man, I got to have a good opener. Like I like a nice analogy. So I just quickly Googled what is the most difficult crop to grow, and up popped wasabi. And I'm like, okay, so why is it really difficult to grow? And it's like, it talks about how sensitive the wasabi root is and the temperature has to be just the right. You can't go below this or above this. They need a lot of water, but you can't saturate them with water. So, you have to kind of control the flow of water. They can't have too much sunlight, but they have to have sunlight. It's very, very specific and very low tolerance for outside of those particular bounds. But what was to me, what really hooked me was like, and by the way, it's one of the most rare things. Like it takes 2 years to properly grow wasabi root to then be used in food and as a spice for food. And like wasabi root, real wasabi root, like demands a premium when you bring it to market because of the conditions under which it's grown. And there aren't many places on the planet that have those conditions naturally, so they have to be manufactured, and so it's expensive to do that and all that. And like it's good wasabi is rare. Pure wasabi you don't often get. Like oftentimes restaurants will substitute other things for it. And I'm like, this is what sales engineers are. Like at the end of the day, like they're a really good sales engineer can be a very rare commodity. And you have to, the conditions under which you develop an SE, a good technical selling person at a company, like they have low tolerance. Like you have to be in kind of these boundaries in order for them to really thrive and grow. And I'm like, man, this is the perfect kind of the perfect analogy. And after the presentation, as I went back to kind of finishing the book, I'm like I loved it so much. I'm like, I just got to call it this because and now I'm like, okay, now I'm much more satisfied with the book title because it's unique and it's differentiated. And people ask like, what does it really mean? And when I tell them about the analogy, they're like, oh, it's cool. Like light bulbs pop. So there's tech sales wasabi for you.
Excellent. So, Bill, if we take you back to Michigan University, and to your younger self, how would you approach your life this time? All over again.
You know, it's I, I used to like that question because I used to like to think about what I would do then if I knew, knowing what I know now. But I've come to realize like I don't know that I would change anything because you have to make the mistakes that you make and go through the weird down times and the awkward times and all of that in order for you to actually grow and appreciate what you have. Otherwise, if I like it's like thinking about a video game and you keep playing and then you die, but you get to you get as many lives as you want in some cases, and you get to go back and you like finally after 15 or 20 attempts you finally figure out how to do whatever, unlock the thing or make the move or whatever that happens to be, and it's like, oh hey, I won. Like that's not life. And there's goodness in having to fail and screw up and go and be embarrassed and all of that stuff. So as much as I would want to go back and like think about all the things that I screwed up and do them differently so that I didn't screw up, man, I would miss out on kind of knowing what I know now and having the attitude that I have and all of that. So I don't think I'd want to change anything.
Excellent. I love what I just heard. So, if say a 25 or a 30 or a 35-year-old guy wants to start in sales engineering, what would be your 3 or 4 distinct advices to them? What could they do to really have a great career as an SC? Because you've lived this life with so much passion for so many years.
Yeah, and stumbled into it, right? And it wasn't purposeful or planful for me to get there. Look, I would say I think when I think about hiring an SE, there are really three things that I look at. One, what does this person know about the industry? And one, what expertise do they bring? And if I look at my career, 90% of the companies that I worked for dealt with the IT industry, and that was my background. Right. And so I came in, with like 10 years of IT experience when I dropped into my first SE role, hugely, hugely helpful. Right. So developing a couple of years worth of experience in whatever industry you're going to be an SE in or sell in, like it's huge. And I don't know how you can be an effective SE without doing that, because you can kind of learn about IT reading about it, but unless you've actually lived it, it's hard to make a connection with the people that you're selling to. So that's one, is like get some industry experience. And I think like I pull from people that have been in support organizations, people that have been customer facing consultants, people that have been in customer success, or people that have actually been in role. Like at Mesmo, I would hire somebody who was a site reliability engineer or somebody who was in DevOps or things like that. Like that's, because I know you're going to bring an industry perspective with you. That's one thing. The second thing is like take sales seriously as a discipline and learn how to communicate and learn how to sell and learn what that means. The art of presenting, the art of communication, all of that really important, because I would tell you, like, nobody taught me that stuff when I was an SE, and my first year was brutal, because what I learned very quickly is that all of the things that I instinctively wanted to do in a demo were wrong. Like I had to like fight all of my instincts and relearn a bunch of things. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing was, I look for somebody who has the capacity to develop a deep expertise in whatever product I'm selling, right? So that's the other thing too. Like whatever kind of area that you would want to be an SE in, like go learn some of the technology and understand it. It doesn't necessarily have to be the technology that you're then going to turn around and sell, but it's having an understanding of how those solutions work that I think is really important. So that's what I would tell somebody. So if somebody had come to me and had no SE experience and maybe not any industry experience, I would tell them, like, go spend a couple of years in a support organization, or go spend a couple of years as doing delivery or consulting, or in the role that you find interesting, because that will make you a much richer SE and give you much more success.
Yeah, that's a wonderful answer. And I'm sure people listening into this podcast would not only benefit if they want to pursue an SC career, but a lot of hiring managers who are looking for that guidance to hire the right set of people as solution consultants. You gave them some rich information. So I'm sure this is going to be very, very beneficial.
No,
And
so
that brings us to the end of the podcast. I'm so glad, Bill, we had this conversation. And whatever you shared with us today, in all transparency, I'm sure it's going to help a lot of young people, lot of middle-aged people, lot of people who are in whatever age they are, to pursue a career which is much more illustrious, much more fulfilling than what they are doing today. They would be able to break the shackles of what they're doing today, get inspired by your story, and explore something which they would love to do. So, thank you again. And I would wish you all the best. Keep enjoying what you're doing. And I would love to welcome you back once we are through 100 episodes. I would love to see where you are then. What are you enjoying then? And would love to connect back.
anytime. I love what you're doing, Pamela. And yeah, I just feel very kind of privileged to have had the opportunity to speak with you here. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Thanks. You as well.